The room gets quiet when change begins, not because people hear it, but because they feel it. A strange energy. Crack in the routine. One day you stop begging for attention. Stop explaining your pain. Stop chasing people who never planned to stay. And suddenly the world notices they can't understand what changed in you, but they sense it from miles away. Your silence becomes louder than your words. Your presence becomes heavier than your absence. Something shifted inside you, not anger, not revenge, power, the kind born after surviving storms alone. And trust me, people can always feel when a soul finally wakes up. There comes a moment in life when silence becomes more dangerous than words. Not the silence of weakness, not the silence of fear, but the silence that forms after someone has seen too much, trusted too much, and survived too much. People often mistake quietness for surrender, because the world is addicted to noise. Everyone wants explanations, reactions, arguments, and emotional performances. But true power begins the moment a person realizes they no longer need to announce their pain to the world. That shift changes everything. The loudest people in the room are not always the strongest. Sometimes they are simply trying to convince themselves they matter. Real strength appears differently. It walks calmly. It observes. It listens. It learns. Silence creates a space where emotions stop controlling decisions. Instead of reacting instantly, a silent mind studies patterns. It notices fake loyalty, hidden jealousy, and intentions buried beneath smiles. The more silent a person becomes, the more they begin to see things others miss. Mansed. There is something unsettling about a person who no longer feels the need to prove themselves. That energy makes people uncomfortable because silence removes predictability. When someone keeps explaining themselves, the world feels in control of them. But when they suddenly become calm, focused, and emotionally disciplined, people start wondering what changed. They feel the distance. They sense the transformation even without words being spoken. Silence also builds resilience. Every painful experience teaches something. Betrayal teaches caution. Failure teaches patience. Loneliness teaches self-reliance. Most people speak from emotion, but silence forces a person to confront themselves honestly. It becomes a private battlefield where insecurities are destroyed and clarity is born. In silence, excuses disappear. Masks fall apart. The truth becomes in. That process is painful, but it creates a different kind of human being. Someone who no longer seeks validation from people who never understood them in the first place. A silent person is not empty. Their mind is usually louder than the chaos around them. While others waste energy competing for attention, they are rebuilding themselves quietly. They are sharpening their mindset, controlling their emotions, and learning how to move without needing applause. That is why silence becomes power. It protects energy. It prevents unnecessary conflict. It reveals who genuinely values you and who only responds when they can control your emotions. And people fear what they cannot read. When someone reacts to everything, they become easy to manipulate. But silence interrupts that control. It forces others to face uncertainty. Suddenly, they cannot predict your next move, your emotions, or your weaknesses. Your calmness becomes intimidating because it reflects inner control. And inner control is rare. In a world where most people are ruled by impulse, there is also dignity in silence. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every betrayal deserves revenge. Sometimes the strongest statement is simply moving forward without needing to destroy anyone away along the way. Silence proves that peace is more valuable than winning pointless battles. It shows maturity, discipline, and confidence. The person who masters silence learns that energy is precious, and not every situation deserves access to it. In the end, silence is not about hiding. It is about evolving. It is about becoming so secure within yourself that you no longer need constant recognition to feel valuable. And when that transformation happens, people notice it immediately. They may not understand it, but they feel it. Because silence, when backed by pain, wisdom, and self-control, carries a presence louder than any voice ever could. Pain has a strange way of changing the way a person sees the world. Before suffering, people often believe life is simple. They trust easily, love without caution, and expect others to carry the same honesty they carry within themselves. But pain interrupts that innocence. It arrives without permission and forces a person to confront realities they once ignored. After enough disappointment, betrayal, failure, or loss, the mind no longer views life through comfort. It begins to see patterns, motives, and truths hidden beneath appearances. The person who has never suffered often speaks carelessly about strength. They believe confidence comes from motivation, success, or praise from others. But real strength is usually built in moments nobody witnesses. It is built during sleepless nights, silent breakdowns, and days when a person feels completely abandoned by the world. Pain strips away illusion. It reveals who truly cares, who disappears when things become difficult, and who only loved the version of you that benefited them. Once someone experiences that kind of reality, their perspective can never fully return to what it once was. Pain also changes priorities. The things that once seemed important slowly lose meaning. Attention becomes less valuable. Approval becomes less necessary. Temporary pleasures no longer distract the mind the same way. A person who has suffered deeply begins to search for peace instead of popularity. They become careful about where they invest their energy because they understand how exhausting emotional damage can be. What once entertained them may now feel empty because pain matures the mind faster than comfort ever could. There is also a loneliness that comes with pain. Not everyone understands the version of you that emerges after suffering. Some people expect you to remain soft, trusting, and endlessly patient, even after life has shown you its darker side. But pain creates boundaries. It teaches caution. It forces people to protect parts of themselves they once gave away freely. Others may call this coldness, but often it is survival. A wounded mind learns quickly that blind trust can become dangerous. At the same time, pain increases awareness. A person who has struggled emotionally becomes more sensitive to the emotions of others. They notice fake smiles, hidden sadness, and silent battles that most people overlook. Suffering creates depth. It teaches empathy in a way comfort never can. Sometimes the kindest people are those who know exactly what it feels like to break internally while pretending to be okay externally. Their pain becomes the reason they understand others more deeply. Pain also destroys arrogance. Life has a way of humbling every person eventually. It reminds people that control is temporary and certainty can disappear overnight. The individual who once judged others harshly may suddenly understand them after experiencing hardship themselves. Perspective shifts when pain becomes personal. The world stops looking black and white. Human beings become more complicated, and life becomes more unpredictable. But perhaps the greatest change pain creates is internal. It forces growth. It transforms weakness into endurance and emotional chaos into wisdom. A person who survives enough storms stops fearing small problems. They become mentally sharper, emotionally stronger, and spiritually more aware. Pain teaches lessons no motivational speech can fully explain, because some truths can only be understood through experience. Langed. The frightening thing about pain is that it never leaves a person exactly the same. It changes the way they think, trust, love, and respond to life. Some become bitter from it. Others become wiser. But nobody walks through real suffering. Pain reshapes perspective completely. And once someone has seen the world through brokenness, they begin to understand things most people never will. Lamed. People can hide intentions behind smiles, words, and carefully crafted appearances, but energy always reveals the truth eventually. There is something beyond language that human beings naturally feel. A person may speak kindly while secretly carrying jealousy. Someone may promise loyalty while their actions quietly create distance. And sometimes, without any evidence or explanation, the heart senses something is wrong before the mind can understand it. That is because energy never lies. Every person carries an invisible presence shaped by their emotions, mindset, and intentions. Some people enter a room and bring peace without trying. Others create tension the moment they arrive, even if they say nothing at all. Energy speaks before words do. It can be felt in eye contact, body language, silence, consistency, and the atmosphere someone leaves behind after they walk away. No performance can completely hide what a person truly carries inside. The problem is that many people ignore energy because they want to believe words. Instead, they confuse attention with care and manipulation with affection. They stay connected to people whose presence constantly drains them because they are addicted to familiarity. But the body notices what the mind tries to deny. Anxiety increases around certain individuals for a reason. Exhaustion appears after forced conversations for a reason. Uneasiness grows when intentions are not genuine. Energy always sends signals before reality becomes obvious. A peaceful person does not need to announce their peace. Radiates naturally. In the same way, anger, insecurity, bitterness, and dishonesty eventually reveal themselves no matter how well they are hidden. Someone can pretend to support you while secretly hoping you fail, but their energy will always expose small cracks in their behavior. Their compliments will feel empty. Their excitement for your success will appear forced. Their presence will create confusion instead of comfort. The truth leaks through energy long before actions fully expose it. Energy also explains why certain people remain unforgettable. Some individuals leave a lasting impact, not because of what they owned or achieved, but because of how they made others feel. Genuine energy creates emotional memory. A calm soul can make chaos feel manageable. A toxic mind can destroy peace without speaking a single harsh word. That invisible exchange affects relationships, friendships, and even personal growth more than people realize. Kino, the strongest individuals often become highly protective of their energy because they understand its value. They stop forcing connections that feel unnatural. They stop begging for understanding from people who constantly create emotional heaviness. They become selective about who gains access to their time, thoughts, and emotions. This is not arrogance. It is awareness. Once someone realizes how deeply energy influences the mind, they begin guarding their peace more carefully. Negative energy is contagious. Constant exposure to lies, jealousy, manipulation, or emotional instability slowly changes a person from the inside. It creates stress, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion. On the other hand, positive energy inspires growth. Being around disciplined, honest, and emotionally balanced people naturally strengthens the mind. Human beings absorb the emotional environments around them, whether they realize it or not. There is also a terrifying truth about energy. Silence amplifies it. When words disappear, people are forced to feel instead of listen. That is why a calm stare can intimidate more than shouting. That is why distance can reveal emotions more clearly than constant communication. Real energy does not need explanation because authenticity carries its own presence. In the end, people may lie with their mouths, manipulate with actions, and disguise themselves for a period of time, but the soul recognizes what the eyes cannot always see, and eventually, the truth hidden inside every person begins to reveal itself naturally. Growth changes people in ways that are often painful, lonely, and misunderstood. Everyone talks about self-improvement like it is a beautiful journey, filled with motivation and success, but very few speak about the separation that comes with it. The moment a person begins changing mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, relationships around them also begin to shift. Some people celebrate your growth from a distance, but others quietly resent it, because your evolution reminds them of their own lack of progress. Damned at first, the changes are small. You start thinking differently. Certain conversations no longer entertain you. Drama becomes exhausting instead of exciting. You begin protecting your peace instead of proving yourself in every argument. The things that once felt normal suddenly feel heavy. Slowly, you realize you are no longer connected to people the same way you used to be. Not because you hate them, but because your mind no longer lives in the same place. Lean to growth creates distance, because not everyone is meant to travel every stage of life with you. Some people were only connected to the version of you that stayed insecure, available, or emotionally dependent. They felt comfortable when you doubted yourself, because your weakness made them feel stronger. But once you begin building confidence, discipline, and self-respect, the dynamic changes. People who once had easy access to your energy suddenly feel uncomfortable. Because they can no longer control your emotions the same way. There is also pain in realizing that growth sometimes requires separation from familiar people and environments. Human beings naturally hold on to comfort even when it damages them. Walking away from toxic patterns feels lonely because familiarity creates emotional attachment. But growth forces difficult decisions. It demands boundaries. It teaches that peace is more valuable than forced loyalty. The stronger a person becomes internally, the less they tolerate behavior that destroys their mental stability. One of the hardest truths about growth is understanding that not everyone wants to see you evolve. Some people support dreams only when those dreams remain distant fantasies. The moment progress becomes real, jealousy quietly appears. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your ambition reminds them of their fear. Your transformation becomes evidence that change is possible, and not everyone is ready to face that reality. So instead of growing with you, they create distance, criticism, or silent competition. Growth also changes communication. A person who is healing no longer seeks constant validation. They stop explaining themselves to people determined to misunderstand them. They become calmer, quieter, and more selective with their energy. To outsiders, this may look like arrogance or coldness, but often it is simply maturity. Healing teaches people that not every relationship deserves unlimited access to their emotions. Bandias. At the same time, growth can feel deeply isolating. The process of becoming stronger often happens in silence. Friends disappear. Conversations fade. Familiar places lose meaning. There are moments when a person questions whether the loneliness is worth it. But growth requires leaving behind versions of yourself that no longer fit who you are becoming. And sometimes that means outgrowing people connected to those old versions too. Yet distance is not always negative. Some separations are necessary for survival. Not every bond is healthy simply because it lasted a long time. Growth reveals who truly values you beyond convenience and who only remained close while benefiting from your weakness. Real connections survive transformation. False ones collapse when they lose control over your identity. Bindi, in the end, growth is not only about becoming stronger, it is about becoming different. And whenever someone truly changes, distance becomes unavoidable. Some people will walk beside you, some will walk away, and some will watch from afar, wondering how you became someone they no longer recognize. An awakened mind is dangerous because it no longer accepts illusions as truth. Once a person begins to truly understand themselves, the world around them changes completely. They stop following blindly, stop seeking constant approval, and stop allowing fear to control their decisions. Most people move through life asleep in routines, distractions, and expectations created by others. But the moment awareness enters the mind, everything becomes impossible to ignore. Patterns become visible. Manipulation becomes obvious. Silence becomes meaningful. And that level of awareness changes a person forever. A mind that has awakened can no longer be easily controlled. Society depends heavily on distraction. People are taught to chase attention, temporary pleasure, and external validation while ignoring their deeper purpose. But awakening destroys that illusion. The awakened person begins questioning everything: relationships, habits, beliefs, and even their own identity. They realize how much of their life was shaped by fear, insecurity, or the need to satisfy others. That realization is powerful because once someone sees the truth clearly, pretending becomes impossible. There is something intimidating about a person who is mentally awake. They observe more than they speak. They understand emotional patterns quickly. They can sense dishonesty hidden beneath confidence and insecurity hidden beneath arrogance. While others react emotionally to every situation, the awakened mind studies people calmly. It understands that actions reveal truth more than promises ever will. That level of awareness makes manipulation far more difficult because the awakened person no longer responds blindly to appearances. Pain often creates awakening. Suffering forces people to look deeper into themselves and the world around them. Betrayal teaches discernment. Loneliness teaches self-reliance. Failure teaches perspective. The awakened mind is rarely born from comfort because comfort keeps people asleep. It is struggle that sharpens awareness and forces growth. After surviving enough emotional storms, a person begins understanding human nature differently. They stop expecting everyone to carry pure intentions, yet they also stop allowing bitterness to consume them. An awakened mind is also dangerous because it values freedom over acceptance. Most people fear rejection, so they hide parts of themselves to fit into groups, relationships, or systems that limit them. But awakening removes that fear slowly. A person who understands their worth no longer sacrifices their peace just to belong somewhere. They become willing to walk alone if necessary. That independence threatens people who rely on emotional control, because awakened individuals cannot be easily manipulated through guilt, pressure, or approval.